I too am particularly honored to receive a John McCarthy Medal. There are only a handful of people in one's life that influence your career, and John, in my case, is one of them. I first met him in 1963. I was a research associate in physics at Stanford, and John gave a colloquium in the physics department talking about this strange language of his called Lisp. As a matter of fact, I was out of town that day, so I didn't hear the talk. But one of my colleagues came up to me and said, "I know you've been having a lot of trouble doing these esoteric algebraic calculations on Feynman diagrams. Maybe this guy McCarthy could help you." So I met John, and the rest is history. Over the next 2 or 3 years, I just poured out so much code, all in Lisp. And the trouble was that this code ran very, very slowly. These algebraic algorithms consumed all the computing power I could lay my hands on. So I looked around for more computers. I mean, John had very generously let me use his computers, but that wasn't enough for me. There were other people using them too. And even if I had them all the time, they wouldn't have been enough. So, I tried at Lawrence Livermore Lab and got hands on some of their Cray machines, and I tried at other places and got hands on machines. But then I ran into a problem. They all had Lisps on them, but they were all different. So I had all these lines of code that wouldn't run on these machines. So I sat down and spent some time designing what was basically a subset of John's original model, which I called Standard LISP. I thought I'd give it a very general name like that. Right. And that has been the basis of the support of this algebra work called Reduce for the last 40 years. Now, there aren't too many programs that were developed 40 years ago that are still in use. And this one's still in use. And in addition to this standardization of the language, there are other spin-offs. In particular, a colleague of mine, Martin Griss, and I developed a portable compiler for Lisp. And what this did was to translate the Lisp into a set of macros, very low-level machine-like macros, with names like load and store and jump. And there were only 15 of these. It was a reduced instruction set. Only I didn't use that term in those days. Others beat me to it. But what happened was you'd compile into this set of macros, and then each of these macros had an expansion on a given architecture. And just 2 or 3 instructions in most cases were sufficient to make this program run. And it's now been ported with help of many colleagues over the years to more than 100 architectures and architectural variants. Strange little processes in Japan that you've never heard of and things like that. It was even ported to the BESM-6, which was mentioned earlier. And there's a funny story here. In those days, it wasn't Microsoft that was the big bad bully on the block. It was IBM. And there were many people in the AI community when IBM came out with this new machine called the System 360, who poo-pooed it, saying, it can't run Lisp very efficiently. Well, the trouble was, with this macro set I had, translating it into the IBM architecture was just 2 or 3 instructions per macro. So it ran very well, very efficiently. So, as I said, this whole effort has stood me well over the last 40 years. And again, I have John to thank for the original inspiration and for pushing my career in a way which it probably would have never have gone otherwise. Thank you very much.